CREATE is an Interreg cluster project. It aims to raise awareness of the importance of implementing immediate activities and measures to reduce the impact of climate change. Although scientists have been discussing climate change for decades, decision makers and the general public are still unaware of how alarming the current situation is. We must act now. With this video, we want to offer you an additional tool and help you spread knowledge, the results of your research, ideas and information, so that you can have a stronger impact on the audience with effective presentations and excellent public performances. You know that moment when you're alone in your car and that song starts playing on the radio and you sing at the top of your lungs? Exactly that emotion, self-confidence and enthusiasm that you feel at that moment are the key to give a successful presentation, a public speak that will influence others and deliver a memorable message. My name is Natalia Donic. I'm a scientist at the Institute of Oceanography and Fisheries in Split, a physicist, and a tireless promoter of science. My first public appearance in front of the cameras was at the FAME Lab in 2011. Since then, I have progressed in science, but also persistently sharpened my presentation skills, which led me to the Chancellor's Award in 2013 and annual award given by my Institute for the Popularization of Science in 2021. You've just heard the first tip. How to grab the audience attention right away, as soon as you enter the room. Before introducing myself, I told you a story. You didn't expect that, and that's why you surely remember the story about self-confidence and mastering the subject as you were singing your favorite song in the car. First step, an idea. What is it that I want to convey to the audience? Put it into a single sentence that you want your audience to leave the lecture with. After you have defined the idea, you need to master the storytelling technique. Come up with a story that will be clear, easy to follow, and memorable. Transfer of knowledge through storytelling is a technique that has been used since ancient times because the mind does not remember data as well as it remembers stories. The story is the glue that keeps the data together. The stories have emotions, the data does not. By telling stories, you can influence people because stories raise interest, encourage engagement and dedication to your topic. And that is your goal. In science, this is especially important because we often need to explain and convey a large amount of data and specific knowledge to those who are not part of your scientific circle. The scientist's role is also to influence policymakers, so they could take into account recent scientific research when making public policies and laws to protect people, infrastructure, and nature from the consequences of the climate change. How to turn complex scientific research into an understandable and interesting story. Second step, story structure. Even the simplest stories have the beginning, the middle, and the end. In every successful public speech, just like in a movie, you can recognize Freytag's story structure. In movies and fairy tales, already at the beginning, some kind of conflict is noticeable. Similarly, at the beginning of our speech, we introduce the topic to our audience and then slightly complicate the situation by presenting some kind of issue. Then we get to the climax of our story, which gets resolved later. It probably seems to you that this is an easy thing to do in movies and fairy tales, but if you listen carefully to the speeches of some of the most famous public speakers, you will recognize exactly this structure. And that is storytelling. In my presentation on climate change in 2011, I explained the greenhouse effect with the story of a simple blanket that you just cover yourself with every time you are cold. The greenhouse effect is essential for life on Earth because without it, During the night, the Earth's temperatures would drop down way below zero. To further explain why the greenhouse effect today is mentioned in a negative context, I invited the audience to imagine putting another blanket on themselves, then another, and ask them how many blankets would be needed for them before they experienced a heat stroke. I used a clear and scenic story with the aim of explaining to the audience what the greenhouse effect is, a term they often hear but few really understand. With an example of a blanket, I vividly explained how greenhouse effect works. If I had used professional scientific language, the audience would remain ignorant and they would be lost at my very first mentioning of scientific terminology.
That's not how to think of a TED Talk. In fact,
Let me give you a tip. Sum up your story. Studying the most watched TED Talks, Chris Anderson once said that there is no recipe for a successful presentation, yet the most successful presentations still share common elements. As already said, you have to have a clear idea. Define one thought and don't try to convey more than one idea through a usually 5 to 15 minutes of presentation. I understand. There is so much we know and want to share with the audience, but to make an impact on the audience, rather focus on one idea, the key idea. Then, give your audience a reason to care about your topic. Involve them emotionally in your story by using examples from everyday life and stimulate their curiosity, and they will follow you. Build your idea through your story, part by part, and don't forget to mention them the benefits. And finally, let your story be worth of sharing and talking among the audience. Thanks to you, your effort and preparation, they will understand a complex idea in a simple way, in a language they understand, and for sure will be enriched with new knowledge. During a presentation or public speaking, the speaker usually prepares a presentation in PowerPoint or some other software. Where many presenters make the most frequent mistakes is the amount of data they put on the slides. Too much text, too many graphs, tables, data. The rule less is more applies in presentations. Write a headline in one row and have maximum 4 sentences per slide with maximum of 4 words per sentence. Do not write complete sentences. Visual support of your presentation is just that, a support. It should not be the speech you are presenting. Summarize the tables with values and numerical data and present them with visually clear graphs. And no, in this way you will not reduce the value of your research, but achieve even greater value as your idea and the subject of your research will be understood by a larger number of people. Okay, you defined the idea, created the story, wrote the speech, and prepared the presentation. It's time to practice, practice, and practice. Rule number 1, practice your speech. Test your presentation on colleagues, students, and family members, or just record yourself and analyze it. It may be uncomfortable the first time. Listening and watching to ourselves is just not natural to us. Eventually, you will get used to it. Study yourself with curiosity and without judgment, and the discomfort will disappear. Practice the tone of your voice. You know that voice tone is often more important than content. A compliment delivered in a harsh tone may sound sarcastic. On the other hand, criticism said in a warm and caring way communicates compassion. Define the color of your voice. It can be rich, soft, warm. Modulate your tone during speech. In that way, you will keep the audience attention until the end. Pay attention to the rhythm. If you speak too fast, the audience will have a hard time to understand you. If you speak too slow, your audience will fall asleep. Let the rhythm of your speech follow the rhythm of your story. And of course, the volume. Don't shout, but pay attention that everybody can hear you. clearly articulate your words and be pleasant. Don't forget to take a pause. They are more than welcome. It's quite normal to have a moment to gather your thoughts or just to remember. It's okay to pause your speech. I know, the hardest part is to get started. You are sitting in front of a white screen and don't know how to start your presentation. You would love to engage your audience right from the beginning. Let me reveal you 7 opening moves. Start your story with a question or give them a fact. You know, that interesting information or something unknown. Surprise them instantly with first sentence. Turn your story around. Tell a short, interesting anecdote or simply use a quote. And don't be afraid to use analogies. It's up to you to figure out which of these moves are most natural to you and most suitable for your story. Thank you for your attention. And now to work. You know, it's up to us scientists to explore the world. I will follow your stories. Good luck!